Hey everybody, my name is Allison and I'm a literacy specialist. I have a literacy blog called Learning at the Primary Pond, and I am here to chat with you tonight about guided reading organization. Also doing a big giveaway, so as you're coming on, make sure to leave a comment. You're welcome to tag a friend or just say hi, and tomorrow night, so Wednesday night, as long as you're watching this live, I will come back and choose a lot of winners. I actually did a Facebook Live last week and just totally spaced out and didn't do the giveaway that I intended to do. So I'm just gonna choose twice as many winners as I normally would for this giveaway. So make sure to leave me a comment. I'm gonna show you a couple of things from my guided reading bundles tonight. And then if you're a winner, you're gonna get all of the levels that I have, including a pre-A set in case you have any kiddos that are not quite reading yet. So make sure that you leave a comment, and again, I'll be choosing winners Wednesday night. But now I just have a whole ton of stuff that I want to show you. I used to actually be super disorganized when it came to guided reading. You know, I had lessons and I'd be pulling things here and there, but I felt like I wasn't making my lessons as creative and engaging as they could be. And, you know, when you're a classroom teacher, guided reading is just one portion of the day, and we all know we have a million other things to plan for. But when I became a reading specialist, when I first became a reading specialist, a lot of what I was doing was guided reading day in and day out. So I realized that I needed to get my stuff together. And I have to tell you, these binders and everything that I've put together, it has made life so much easier. It's now just a matter of going in the binders, finding what I need for the group, and then I'm pretty much good to go. So speaking of the binders, I'm gonna start tonight by talking about the stuff, like the behind the scenes stuff that I have for my teacher stuff, and then I'll eventually move into some different things that I use. I'm not gonna go super in depth about what a lesson looks like, but I'll just talk about the different parts of a lesson so that I can show you the different materials and things that I use throughout the lesson. I have a lot of stuff down here that you can't see that I'll be pulling up to show you. But let's start with my teacher organization materials. So these binders that I've created have been the biggest lifesaver. This is what I was talking about with getting everything organized and being able to just go and pull stuff. So this is my master binder. And as you can see, it's really only kindergarten levels or early first grade, A through D. I do have other binders. They're just not here right now. I have like E through J and K through N or whatever, because I work with so many levels. So your binder will, if you use something like this, it'll just depend, you know, how many different guided reading levels you work with. So this is A through D, and whoops, have an escapee. I have a bunch of tabs, and I know it'll be hard to see, but I will kind of talk you through what's in here. I have a bunch of different tabs. I have 4 tabs per level. So level A has 1, 2, 3, 4. And in the first tab here, these are all masters, right? So they're not the actual materials that I teach with. I would pull these out and make copies. It's just a matter of taking this binder to the copy room so that I can make copies of these things, but the originals stay in here. So that's one important thing to know. For the first tab, for all of these levels, this is level A, but this is true for all the levels, I will have a checklist. Don't know how well you can see that, and these are in my guided reading guided reading bundles as well as my guided reading level checklist. But these are just things that I'm looking for at every level because I work with so many different kiddos. Today I've worked with a 5th grader for the first time in a long time, and I worked with as low as pre-K. There's just a lot for me to remember, and so I like to have right in front of me, like, okay, these are the things that I'm looking for at this level. So in the first tab, I have the checklist that's level specific. I also have book originals. So these are from my guided reading series. You fold them, print them, fold them, put them together, and I like to keep original copies here in this tab. Other great resources for guided reading books: Rigby PMs are really good. Benchmark Reading, I don't remember if it's Benchmark Reading or whatever. Benchmark has some really good books, and I really like my Reading A to Z account that I have that has tons of printable books. So if you want to keep masters of books just so that you can see what you have, I feel like that's nice to do it, and I keep those in the first tab. And then I think that's all I have in the first tab usually. Following that, I have some actual plans. Now, I don't have all of my plans typed up nicely like this, but for some books I do. For the books in my bundles I do anyway. And what I will do is I will just have this nice little plan. If I want to use it, sometimes I'll photocopy it, but honestly a lot of times what I'll do to save paper is just take this lesson out of my binder and I'll put it in my everyday binder, which I'll show you in a second. So we can just go back and forth between the master binder and the everyday binder pretty easily. So those are some lesson plans that go with the books that I was showing you here. And then my next tab is labeled Decoding and Fluency. So any sort of decoding and fluency strategy materials or like visuals that I would have, those go in there. So that's decoding and fluency. Also, I created these because, again, with working with so many levels, sometimes I forget, like, okay, what should I be focusing on? And this is just a list of different decoding strategies for level A. For the higher levels, I also have fluency strategy lists as well. So it's just things like, okay, look for words that you already know, look at the picture for help, stuff like that, just to remind myself, okay, this is what I should be working on with this group. So that's following the decoding and fluency tab. Next, we have comprehension and vocabulary. So again, it would be strategy visuals. This is level A, but as it gets harder, I have, like, as the levels go up, I have comprehension question spinners and comprehension question cubes and just different activities to work on comprehension and vocabulary with the kids. Again, I have strategies that are applicable to the level dealing with comprehension and vocabulary. And that's, nope, that's not it, just kidding. This is, I must have taken these out. The last one should be, it should have word study and any writing, like printable materials or whatever that you would use. So this is an example where they're writing the letter T for a tiger. Any masters that I have, and I don't know what I did with these, should be in here. So that last tab is for word study and writing. And then I just have a list of different activities that I might do with the level in terms of word study and writing. And that is it. So that's what one little section, one level looks like. Again, I had the level-specific checklist. I had the printable books. I had one tab for decoding and fluency, one tab for comprehension and vocabulary, and then my last tab was for like word study, writing, all the other stuff. So I have that for every single level. A through N, and these go into my master binder. So again, the reason you missed this before, I love having this, is because then I just go to the copy room, and of course there's other materials that I pull in, but there's so many, you know, like original copies that I can just pull from, say, okay, we're gonna work on this, make some copies, and then we're good to go. Now, once you have some materials prepped, like I was showing you with that little T strip where they were writing the letter T, I do have materials prep that I can reuse over and over again, right? I'm not making copies for every single lesson. That would be a lot of paper. So in addition to the master binder, I have, so here, just grabbing stuff for you. I have these little mini drawers, and I got these off Amazon. The links for everything should be in the, let me double check to make sure that I put it in here. It should be in that little Google Drive link that I put on there. But so I meant to make like cute little levels. I've been meaning to do that for like 2 years and I still haven't done them. But I remember where they are. So I have like an A, B, C, D, E, F. Forget what I pulled for this. But when I have materials prepped, like these spelling cards, like this is, they have to write in float. These, I think, is long vowel cards, or I have little puzzles and stuff. Then once they're prepped, the masters still usually stay in here, but I'll keep sets in these little drawers. And again, I have one little drawer for each level. Now, depending on how many kids you work with, you might want bigger drawers. It just depends. Like I have smaller groups and now I do one-on-one, so I don't need like tons and tons of stuff, but you might, you know, have your own drawers. But I like organizing the drawers by levels and the binder by levels too. Part of it is just to keep my kids interested, because what I found that I was doing before I put all this together was that we'd be playing the same games over and over again, and we'd work on different skills maybe, but I didn't want them to be so bored. So now when they like move up from level A to B, there's going to be brand new activities. So it's just more of a way, yes, of keeping myself organized, but also keeping the kids engaged, because it's like when they move up, they always have new stuff to do. So that is the kind of behind the scenes stuff. Some other stuff that I keep but don't necessarily use during the lesson, some other things are very boring file folders. What I like to do, and I'll talk more about this later, is I will take running records every time I meet with a group. So I'll take one running record per group, and then you end up with a lot of running record forms, right? So actually somebody told me once, and I like this idea, that they will take a running record form on like a dry erase format. They'll take a photo of it on their iPad, and then they can wipe it off and reuse it. I have not gotten that high tech yet, but I think that's an awesome idea. So if you try that and you like it, let me know. But what I do is I'm honestly such a paper hard copy girl that I will use a lot of running record forms. And you know, let's say this is Melissa's folder. And at the end of the week, I usually plan guided reading on Thursday afternoons. I will go through my everyday binder, which I'll talk more about in a second, and I'll take out the finished running records and I will put them in the kids' folder. So over time, what you end up with is you have a folder of running records for your kiddos. You know, you can weed things out. You don't need to keep it forever, but it's just helpful to have multiple running records so that you can see over time how they're progressing. So that's another kind of behind the scenes thing that's not used during the actual lesson, but that I like to keep for each student. Another little behind the scenes thing, I mean, I guess I kind of use this during the lessons. I used to have this really small jewelry organizer for magnetic letters, but then there were like multiple letters in each little thing, and I didn't like that. So I found this from Really Good Stuff. The link is in that little document that I shared. But this is really nice for organizing all your letters. And I have another one for organizing pictures. So especially with levels like A through E, a lot of the materials, and you know this if you have my bundles, a lot of the materials use picture cards, and you can use them for multiple purposes, right? You can use them for phonological awareness activities like, okay, let's, you know, sort words that rhyme, or let's sort words by initial sound or ending sound. Or I'll show them a picture, they tell me what it is, which is good for vocabulary for those ELLs, and then, you know, they write the word on their dry erase board. So I feel like there's so many different things that you can do with pictures. So for my level A and B pictures, I just have these sorted out into another organizer, and then I'll grab what I need for the particular lesson, but this is just kind of a nice thing to have to keep things organized if you like organization like me. So now I think I've shown you most of the behind the scenes stuff, but I'm going to talk a little bit about, sorry for reaching, my daily binder. That is different from the master binders. These things are huge, they're a little bit heavy, and this is what I use when I'm planning. However, I'm not taking this whole thing to my lessons because that would be a little intense. So I have my daily binder, and this is what's with me when I'm at the table with my kids. So in the daily binder, I'll just show you this because you're gonna see it first when I open it up. If I have little materials or index cards or whatever, there's always like little stuff floating around for guided reading that kind of drives me nuts. So I found these on Amazon and I really like them because they're clear and they're just little zip pouches where you can put, like during the lesson, if there's a sight word that comes up that I'm like, oh, my kids need to know that, I'll just keep keep blank index cards here so that we can, you know, add a sight word card, whatever. If there's little, I forget what I did here. Like this was dividing up, what we're doing, dividing up compound words. I'll keep those little materials in there. I do have baskets for different groups, which I'll show you in a second, but if you have little things floating around, these zip pouches are nice, and that link, just like everything else I've been showing you, is in the Google Drive file. So that's kind of at the front of my binder. Also at the front of my daily binder, I will have these level-specific rubrics. And so these are nice because, you know, running records are really helpful and absolutely inform my instruction, but sometimes it's just nice when they're reading to be able to observe what they're doing or what they're not doing. And this gives me guidance in what to look for. So like this is for level B, attends to words and pictures, notices errors in own reading, and so you can kind of rate them with how they're doing. And I don't necessarily like fill out an entire checklist every lesson, but maybe I'll start one for a kid and then I'll finish the next time. It's just kind of a here and there thing, but it's nice in giving you guidance in what to look for and also keeping track. When I have finished one for a kiddo, they will go in these manila folders that I was talking about along with the running records forms that are completed. So I have blank copies here I make multiple copies at once because I'm super scatterbrained, and if I run out, I'll like not have them for a week or two because I just keep forgetting because, you know, during guided reading you're doing all the things and you forget stuff. So I like to make a ton of copies and just have them available for the levels that my kids are at. And speaking of making tons of copies and being forgetful, because I do my plans in writing, I have blank planning templates here at the back of the binder, and I like having extra copies here because sometimes, have you ever had that experience where like, oh, we need to do this in the next lesson, but maybe you don't have it planned out yet, or you don't have the lesson plan template, or you're going to type it up? Well, if you have extra copies, you can just pull one out and write down like, okay, we need to do this. So it's nice to have extra copies of the planning template if you use one in the back. And then I also have a bunch of running record form templates just here waiting to be used. Again, I make a ton of copies at once because I'm forgetful, but then I just pull one out of the back and I can use one, and it's super easy. Okay, so I kind of showed you the front and the back, but I didn't show you what's in the middle, which is probably the most important part. In the middle are the actual plans. I will have a tab for each group, and in that tab, I'll put my plans. Pretty straightforward. I will also, if I take a running record, like, who was this? This was Yvonne, Adoni, Leslie. And so if I have like a running record that I took for one of them, I'll stick it in here along with their plans. And then when I go back and plan for the group for the next week, I can be like, okay, what did we do? How did it go? What were my notes? And then how were their running records? And so then when I'm planning, after I've used that information to figure out what I'm gonna do next in the next lesson or the next week, then after I'm done with the running records, I'll take them out, and again, they go in here. So that's kind of the flow with that. So the middle of the binder is pretty simple, just lesson plans, and you finish running records. And that is about it for my day-to-day binder. And again, this is what stays with me when I'm actually at the table. Okay, so much stuff. So I guess what I want to do now is talk about some stuff that I use during the lesson, because a lot of this has been teacher materials. And I do have stuff that I use with the kids, of course. So I'll just start pulling stuff up. This is actually a scissors caddy. Found it on Amazon, and I have the link for you there. But the reason I like this is because the little cups come off. So I like to have highlighters. I'll have like fun pencils, colored pencils, whatever. And you can easily take this off, pass it around so that the kids aren't like messing with the colored pencils if you only want them to have highlighters. So this is really nice. And if you want to have little pointers or something, these are pretty boring. But what you can do is when your kids are at those early levels where you want them practicing one-to-one pointing, you can just glue a big googly eye right here, and it makes kind of a fun pointer for them. I'm sure you have lots of other pointer ideas that are fun, but you can also stick these in the caddy. So that is something that we use, you know, maybe for writing afterwards or whatever. But I guess kind of now what I want to do is think about the different parts of the lesson and what I use during each part. So to give you an idea of that, when my kids come to the table, they sit down and they already know what to do. They know that I'm going to be taking a running record of one student's reading and that they need to be rereading familiar texts while I'm working with the star student. So I might put a star on the table or have a little cutout, you know, like taped down, and I'll say, okay, Ryan, you are my star student today, and so he'll sit down with me. He will reread the text that was new to us in the previous lesson, and meanwhile, the other kids are rereading, and they get their rereading books from the basket. So I have a lot of other junk in here right now, but I will have like multiple books that they've read in the past in the basket so they can choose, and rereading those books is really great for fluency. It occupies them while I'm taking the running record, so that's where they get the books from. So I'll just stick the bin on the table. You know, if I'm in a classroom setting and I'm having to get other kids settled, it's really nice because they sit down, they know what to do, and even if you're not available right at that second, they can get started. So that's the basket. They're rereading, I'm taking the running record. I'll have the child retell me what they read. Maybe I'll ask them a question, and all that's going on that running record form. I'll rate their fluency on a scale from 1 being disfluent to 3 pretty darn fluent. And after we're done with that, then typically I will, if we have, you know, let's say a group needs to work on some letter sounds a little bit just for fluency, we will do that. And I usually keep stuff that's group specific, like sight words or letters or whatever. I'll keep it in the basket. And so even if it means having duplicate copies of like letter cards or, you know, sight word cards on index cards, I'll have duplicates because I just think it's so nice to be like, okay, this is the red group's bin and everything that you need pretty much is in that bin. So I like to do it that way. What was I saying? Okay, so they've read their books for fluency, and then we might do a couple of sight word cards or flashcards or whatever. And then usually I'm going to introduce the new text for the day. And so I'll have that, you know, set aside or whatever out of the bin so they're not reading it yet. I'll introduce the book while they're reading. Because I've already taken the running record, I'm available to be their coach. And I also use visuals to coach them too. So there's a number of different visuals that I use. Sometimes, because I don't want to talk at them forever before they actually read. So it's nice to just say, hey, you remember when we worked on this strategy last week or last lesson? You know, you, what is this one? If you get stuck, say the first sound and then look at the picture. Okay, I'm just gonna put this up on the table so that you can remember while you're reading. So this lovely little thing, again, the link is in the Google Drive file there. This thing just acts as kind of like a visual reminder of a strategy that they might use. And then you can also load it up, which I love. It has so many sheets. Like if I have different groups, like this is the green group, then I might load up certain strategies for them. And guided reading goes so fast, right? So it's nice because you can just flip from group to group if you have it all loaded up. And this just folds up so nicely. I love it. So that's something that I might have on the table while they are reading. It really just depends on the group. Another thing that they might have available to them is a strategy menu. All this stuff that I'm showing you, except for like the material stuff, is included in my guided reading bundles or levels. But so this is a strategy menu. When they've learned multiple strategies, sometimes they forget that they know a strategy. And so I may place one of these in front of every child. You know, remember, these are strategies you can use if you get stuck. Because during the independent reading portion, I'm available to help them, but this is their time to problem solve, right? So I want them to have challenges in the book to work through, and I want them to have some sort of visual just to remind them of all the things that they do know. Now, this is a lot of strategies. Hopefully I can find this thing. This is a lot of strategies for kiddos who are just starting to read, right? Somewhere here with all my stuff, hopefully I can find it, I have a little card, and it's just one strategy at a time that just, there it is, will stand up on the table. So with my little ones who might get distracted, I don't know how well you can see that, but I'll show you on my hand. If I just want them to focus on one strategy, I will put this right in front of them while they're reading, and that's a little reminder of what I want them to do. So that's an alternative to this, and another alternative to the little stand-up thing that I showed you. So obviously I don't use all of these because that would be overwhelming depending on the group, depending on what we need to work on. I may choose one of those just as a visual reminder while they are reading. So they're whisper reading or silent reading after level I or J, and I'm available to coach them. After we read, I have them retell, and I try to let them really take the lead in that once I've scaffolded them and shown them how to do that. And I'm usually asking a couple of higher level thinking questions after they do the retelling. This actually is a writing cube. I think I grabbed the wrong thing, but I like to use in my guided reading bundles. I have different spinners and dice games where they can, you know, roll it and answer a question like, what was the setting, or how would you change the ending of the book? Just different things to make it fun when we're doing comprehension stuff. So after that, after we've talked about the meaning of the book, then sometimes I'll go back and say, hey, you know what I noticed Maria doing while we were reading? I noticed that she covered up the word ending to this word, and I'll like show them in the book. And, you know, then she read the base word, and then she read the ending, and she put it together. So I might talk about a strategy. And again, that's where I'll be pulling in a little visual like this or something else. Really good for ELLs, and just kind of helps anchor the strategy if you've got a picture to show them what you're talking about. So After we talk about the content of the book, then I may review a strategy. It could be decoding, but with those higher groups, it could be comprehension or fluency, a vocabulary strategy, use context clues. It all just depends on the group. So at that point, then we've already done a lot, but as long as there's time, I may do a little word work activity with them, maybe a little writing. It depends on the needs of the group. I have separate times in my day when I'm in the classroom for real like focused phonics work, word study work. So it doesn't all have to fit into guided reading the way I do it. I also have a separate time for writing. So those things are components that if we have time and it's relevant for the group, I will use them, but they don't always fit in. So for the last part of the lesson, we may be doing a number of things. We might be writing on whiteboards. This is, I just brought one, I think my other art school. This is a dish drying rack, and you can stack up the little whiteboards here. And in the front, you can put dry erase markers or whatever for them to grab, which is really nice. I use baby socks. I don't know where I put my baby sock, but I use baby socks as erasers. You can get them at the dollar store, and that's fun. So if we're writing on whiteboards, this is something that I use to keep these organized. I also sometimes use my little mini pocket chart. This is from Learning Resources, but I bought it on Amazon. It's double-sided. Got the link for you again in that Google Drive document. And there's one other thing I wanted to show you. I like to separate out magnetic letters or any materials that each of the kiddos is going to be using before the lesson because it just takes so much time to get them what they need. So often what I'll do if there's certain magnetic letters that I want them to use, I will put a little, it's actually lunch meat containers. I was driving my husband nuts saving these for a long time, washed them out, but they're pretty sturdy. And so I'll give each kiddo a little container that has what they need for the word work activity or whatever we're doing. So these are nice for that. I think I've shown you pretty much everything that I wanted to show you. I've walked you through the teacher materials. Let's see how I did on my list. These are the binder sizes that I use for like the master binders versus my daily plans. Talked about the zip pouches, supply caddy, one basket for each group. I have the dividers in the binder, the dish drying rack I showed you, tabletop dry erase board. This is kind of hard to show because it's just so big. I used to always be holding up the little dry erase boards, but once I got this, I was so happy. It's pretty affordable. Folds down. This one is magnetic, and you can also write on it. It actually has a felt board on the other side. So this is really nice. Again, I got the link in the Google Drive file for you. This is nice if you're doing stuff on the table and it folds up pretty good. It's obviously bigger than like the other folding stand that I had, but it's super convenient still. And then we talked about the file folders. The only other thing I wanted to show you, and this might be interesting to you if you're a kinder or first grade teacher, or if you just have kids that aren't reading yet. For PreA readers are those kids who are still working on their sounds and maybe they're learning to write their name. And so some of this stuff might pertain to them. We still work with books, talk about the meaning of text and all that, but they have different needs. So I have a little bit of a different system for my PreA readers. I'm going to be giving the PreA set away to all the winners too. So again, make sure you leave a comment. If you missed this earlier, make sure you leave any kind of comment and you will be entered to win the A through N bundle and my PreA little activity set, which is separate. I'll pull winners tomorrow night, Wednesday. But for PreA, the way I set this up is designed to take away some of the feeling like you're grabbing this and you're giving them that and then you're taking it away. With PreA, if you're a kinder or first grade teacher, you kind of know what I mean. Like you have a lot of stuff. You might have like magnetic letters and different mats and different materials. And so passing out and gathering up all those materials can take a lot of time. So after a lot of struggle with this, I came up with a different way of doing my PreA materials. It's separate again for my A through N guided reading bundles, but it's separate and different for a purpose. So this is my teacher book, and I just found it so that I would have all sorts of different like activities and things, just lessons that I can do with the kids. And then there's some things that I'll use with them, like what are we doing? Do these start the same? House, bell? Do they start the same? Bed, bench. So it has my teacher stuff in here. So that's not super different other than the fact that I found it. But what is different are these little activity books. And what I did here is I took all of the printable materials. You know, obviously you'd need books and magnetic letters and all that good stuff. But I took all the printable materials that I use with my PreA kids and I stuck them in a binder. And so for every lesson, I give each kid one of the binders, and it's not their binder. But what I do have them do when they still need to work on writing their names, if that's something that they need to work on, I will have them, this is kind of like a little, like a log, like, you know, when you when you travel somewhere and they have like the, you know, who's stayed here, whatever, like they'll just write their name, who was here. So that's name practice. And then there's a ton of different things in here that we use for different purposes. And they don't use all of them every day. What I did, and it might be hard to see, is I put little pictures here, like this is an elephant, so that I can say, okay, turn to the page with the elephant, and they'll know what I mean. But if we have name practice, there's this. This is an alphabet chart. Maybe I'm saying, okay, find the letter, whatever. Maybe we're chanting A, apple, A, B, book, B. So just all sorts of different things. These are sorting mats for those kids who really don't have a concept of what a letter is. Maybe we're sorting letters. Do they have holes or do they not have holes? Or do they have curves? Are the letters straight? Do they have curves and straight parts in the letters? These are in pockets, what do you call these? Sleeves. So you can do all sorts of things like incorporate magnetic letters, and you know, you give them a handful to sort and they sort it. Is this the K? Is this the Q? So you can add in other materials too. You can have them write, you know, this is the lowercase a, or they match the lowercase a. So you can incorporate other materials. And obviously you're not doing all of this every single time, but it's just nice to have all these different activities in one place so that you're not having to constantly pass out this and then gather it up and pass out something else. And I have a little alphabet book in here too that I like, where, you know, we can trace it. They can trace it with their finger. We can say the name. So you're incorporating the multi-sensory stuff, even though it is just pages, really. We have little games like make the face, where I'll call the letter, and they use a little counter and cover, whatever. It's kind of like bingo. So there's all kinds of stuff in here. Some handwriting pages. But again, the reason why I did this is just to save time in the lesson itself. Every kid gets a binder, and we'll work with books and other things too, but this is kind of the basis for the PreA lesson for those little guys who are not reading yet. All right, well, I'm losing my voice a little bit because I just got home from school not that long ago. So I'm gonna let you all go. If you do have questions, or if I've missed your question, I apologize. Can't really see them too well right now, but I will go back through and I will answer any questions that you have. So 2 things, make sure that you download that list, the Google Drive file with all the links to everything. And number 2, make sure that you commented so that I can put you in the giveaway tomorrow night, Wednesday night, probably more like Wednesday late afternoon. I will come and choose some winners. I'm gonna choose a bunch of winners, and if you're a winner, you'll get the A through N bundle and the PreA resource. Until then, if you have questions, feel free to comment. Thank you for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your evening.